Hi, it's Artsy Hip Chick. So I started doing a blanket for a friend who had just gotten married, and I wanted something a little different than a chevron blanket, so I kind of did these like little, I don't know, they look like little hearts and stuff inside the blanket. So if you're wanting to learn how to do a trick like this, let me show you what you can do to make your chevron blanket to have these little heart stitching as well. What you need to get started: a 5mm hook,
That one.
some scissors,
I did it.
tapestry needle, and a different assortments of color of yarn.
I got this one.
So let's go ahead and get started. To get started, we're going to go ahead and chain 24. In order to do that, we're going to hold our yarn in our third finger. You're going to go up and around, creating an X. You're going to grab your hook, go underneath the first line, grab the second string, and you're going to pull it under. This is kind of gets a mess, so you're going to grab this loose tail that you have, and you're going to kind of gently pull until you have this loop. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to chain 24. And to do that, you're going to wrap your yarn around your hook and pull through the loop. That's one. Wrap your yarn around the hook and pull. Wrap your yarn and pull. So far 3, and you're going to keep going. 4, 5, and then we're adding 2 stitches on top. 1, 2. So this is just what I'm doing, just to show you an example on a very small pattern square. But you're going to be doing at least chain 24, and if you're depending on what size of the blanket, you're going to do multiples of 12 plus adding 2 chains. So I did 24 chains, and then I'm going to add the 2 to making it 26. So let's move on. You're going to turn your work around and make sure your chains are all facing you, nice and pretty. And this right here is the first chain from the hook. You're going to go right here, which is the second chain from the hook. You're going to put your hook inside that chain, wrap your yarn from behind, and pull up a loop. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn around the hook, and you're going to pull through both of those loops. And that's chain 1. 1 crochet, and we're going to do 2 into this stitch. So put our hook inside again, and you're going to pull up 2 loops, wrap your yarn around the hook, and pull through the 2. And there's 2 single crochets in that loop. The next we're going to do is 4 single crochets into the next 4 stitch, so 1 in each. Put your hook inside the stitch, bring up a loop, get 2, wrap your yarn, and that's 1 stitch. Let's go into the next one. Wrap your yarn, pull up a little stitch, wrap your yarn. That's 2. We're going to continue. 3 and 4. And now we're going to do our first decrease peak. And to do that, we're going to decrease 3 single crochets together. To do that, you're going to put your hook inside the stitch, pull up a loop like you normally would in a single crochet, except we're not completing yet. We're going to take our hook and go into the next stitch, wrap your yarn around the hook, and pull up. So now you should have 3. We're not going to complete it. We're going to grab our hook, go into this next stitch, wrap your yarn around the hook, and pull up. And you should have a total of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 loops onto your hook. Wrap your yarn around again, and you're going to pull through carefully all 4 loops, and that's your first decrease pattern. So it's going to go this way. So now we're going to go into this next stitch right here, and we're going to do 4 single crochets. So 1, and go to the next one, 2, 3, and 4. And now this is our mountain peak we're going to do, and that's 3 single crochets into this stitch right here. So to do that, you're going to put your hook inside the stitch, pull up a loop, wrap your yarn around the hook to complete your 1 single crochet, put your hook back into the stitch for 2, and this one 3. So you got 3 single crochets into that stitch. Now in the next 4 following stitches, you're going to do 1 single crochet. So 1, 2,
Next is these.
3, and 4. And we're going back to that 3 of these stitches decreasing together. So again, you're going to put your hook into the stitch, wrap your yarn around the hook and pull up a stitch. So you have 2. Put it into the next stitch, wrap your yarn, pull up, you have 3 loops. And this one right here, put your hook inside the stitch, pull up, and now you got the 4. Wrap your yarn, and you're going to carefully pull through all 4. And then the next, you're going to do the 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this last stitch right here, we are going to do 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So this is what it should look like when you're done with this first row, and you can kind of see how it's forming. And it's going to be the bottom peak, you got your top peak, your decrease, and then you got this half peak right here. And we're going to continue, and I'm going to show you this pattern. Row number 2 and on is going to be about the same, except when we change colors, and we will do that together. Alright, so now we're going to start row 2, and I'm not changing colors yet, so I'm just going to turn my work around, and we're going to skip this first stitch directly underneath the hook, and we're going to go into this one, and we're going to do a single crochet, making sure you're in both loops. So you see right here, here's the front loop and the back loop, it's what it's called. You're sticking your hook through both, and you're wrapping your yarn around a hook, pull up the loop, wrap your yarn and pull straight through for 1 single crochet, and put the hook back in, and for number 2 single crochet. So now that we had discussed the front and back loops, we're going to be working in our back loops only. So this is the front loop right here behind, that's the back loop. So we're going to stick our hook inside the back loops only to give it a ridge, and I'll show you that. So this is 1, wrap your yarn, and it's still a single crochet. Go into the next back loop, 2, back loop, 3, back loop, and 4. And then we're going to do our decrease. So back loop only again. You're going to wrap your yarn around the hook, do not complete, go into the next, wrap your yarn for the 3 loops one more time. Now that you have 4 loops around your wrap your yarn and pull through carefully all 4, just like that. And we're going to continue going up, doing the 4 peaks, back loops only for single crochets. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And right here in this next stitch, we are going to actually do 3 single crochets on top. So 1, going back in the same stitch for 2, back in the same stitch for 3. And now we're going to continue going down to the bottom peak. So 1, 2, and get some yarn. Oops. 3, 4. And again, we're decreasing. So 1, 2, 3. And back loops for 1, 2, 3, and 4. And right here, as you see, we have one last stitch. You're going to go through both front and back loops, and you're going to do 3 single crochets into that same stitch. That's 1, 2, and 3. So we have just completed row 2, and as if you can kind of see, we already have the ridges forming. And we're going to turn our work around, and we're going to work 2 more times before we switch colors. So we'll do that together. And we're just going to repeat what we just did the second row, turning our work around. Oops. Yeah. Turning our work around, skipping this one, going into the second one for the 2 single crochets. So 1. You're going through the first and back loops, so do both. 2, and basically what we're doing is we're just creating a cleaner border by going through both the front and the back loops. And then we're going to do 4 back loops of the single crochet, the decrease of the 3 single crochets together, and then on the top here, remember the 3 single crochets. So do 2 more rows of this, and then we'll meet back up when we've done 4. Alright, so now we're at the finishing up with the end of row 4 with this gray color, and I have my last stitch right here, and what I'm going to do is, that is the 3 single crochet, so it's 1, 2, and on this third one, we're going to leave the 2 loops here. We're not going to complete the single crochet with this gray because we want the clean color to switch over. So we're going to cut the gray off, find our new color, and we are just going to loop our new color onto the hook and finish our pattern with that, or our single crochet with that. So we're going to turn our work around, and so we're going to skip this stitch like we did previously before, and we are going to do 2 single crochets in the front and back loops. So there's 1 and there's 2, and I like to tuck my tails in behind so that way it kind of holds on to it just for the first 2 stitches, and then I kind of put it down and then sew it in. So switching the colors, we are going to change the pattern up a little bit. So as I had discussed before, this is the chain right here. This is your front loop and your back loop. This is your chain, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into the stitch right below, and this is the stitch that's from the previous row to give you these like peaks. So wrap your yarn around behind after you put your hook through, pull up a loop so you got 2, wrap your yarn, and pull through straight through. So it kind of gives this little ridges. So that's one stitch. You're going to go into this one, next one right below, again from the previous row. That's 2. Go into the next one. That's 3. And right here, this last one, that's 4. Now we're moved into our first peak for the decrease, and we are going to decrease 3 of the single crochets together. And to do that, we're going to go through both stitch, the front and back, and put our hook through, and you're going to pull up a loop. We're not going to complete it. We're going to put our hook into the next stitch, and this one's in the actual same stitch. You're not going below to the previous row, you're actually going into this row of the same stitch, so, or in the next stitch. So put your hook into the next third stitch, pull up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn around your hook and gently pull through all 4. And now we're going back to doing single crochets into the previous stitch. So here's this row stitch, then we're going to go underneath right here, which is from the previous, and we're going to do 4. I'm sorry, not that one, because that's directly here. So make sure you do not make a mistake. See how this, we already went into this chain, so you don't want to go in this one, you want to go in this next one. So this is 1, next one, 2, 3. All right, and then on this 4th one for this high peak, you're going to actually put it into where you did the 3 single crochets in the previous row. You're going to actually stick it in there for your 4th chain. Okay, now we're ready for our mountain peak. And what we're going to do is, you see again, you have the front and the back loops. You're going to put your hook through both, front and back. And you're going to do your 3 single crochets into that stitch. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're moving on to the 4 single crochets into the stitch directly from the previous row. So again, this is the one we just did the 3 single crochets. You're still into the whole hoop with the 3 single crochets. You're going to put your hook back into it, pull up a loop into your single crochet, and then now you're going to go underneath the stitches. So that was 2, 3, and 4. And then you're going to decrease to using the both stitch, and you're just going to be on top of this one. So right here, the first stitch next to you in this row, so not the one from the previous row. Oops, I forgot to do the decrease. So, messing up. This is the 3 decrease. So, pull up a loop, we're not completing. Pull up a loop, we're not completing. You have 4 loops, wrap your yarn. Carefully pull through all 4. And then now we're going to knot this one because you already went in this stitch. You're going to go into the previous, this next one, but underneath it. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're not done. Don't forget this last stitch right here, and you're going to go into the first and back loops of that stitch, and you're going to do 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. So we completed row 5, and if you kind of look here, it gave a little heart look. You can kind of shape it if you want, and that's what it looks like when you change colors. See what we're going to do, keeping the same color. We're just going to do what we did in row 2. Turn our work around, not this first stitch, but this one you're going to do your 2 single crochet. So 1, 2, and then now we're going to work back into the back loops only, doing the 4 single crochets. So 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to do what we did before, decrease the 3 single crochets back loops only. You're going to do back loops only for the 4 single crochets going up to the peak, and this middle one right here you're going to, excuse me, into the back loops only, do 3 single crochets, and you're going to continue for this row pattern 2 in the same color, and we're going to do it for 3 more times before we switch colors. Alright, so I just finished the 4th row on my 2nd color, and if you lose track, basically when you turn back around you're going to want to make sure you're facing your stitch with the little hearts again, so before you change colors. So this is the last row. You're on the ugly side. We're going to cut our yellow yarn off, and then I am going to do this like navy blue. Pull the yarn through so it gets that clean look. No chains necessarily. Move over, and we're going to skip this first stitch and then again work from the 2nd stitch. Let me tuck those behind. And so put your hook into both loops, tuck your tails behind, pull up a stitch. You got 2, wrap your yarn, pull. So that's 1. Go back into the same stitch for 2 for the first stitch. We're going to tuck our tails behind, and again, you remember we're in the new color, so this is the row that we have been working on, and this is your 6th row that you would normally work in, but we're not working on this row. Again, we're going to work not in this stitch but into the previous stitch, which is right below it, and pull up to get that peak. So that's 1, and this navy blue is kind of hard to see. So there's that previous row loop, there's the loop underneath, push your hook in there, pull up a stitch, wrap your yarn for 2, 3, I knew it, I skipped a stitch, okay. That can happen, and if you lose track, you can get a stitch marker. So that was the next one, and I was supposed to be in this hole. So 1, 2, 3, directly under, and 4. So see, it's forming, and we are gonna actually work on this row, the stitch on this row, so for the 3 decrease. So put your hook into it, wrap your yarn around the hook to bring up a loop, put your hook into the 2nd one, pull up and bring a loop, and put your hook into the 3rd one and pull up a hoop. You should have 4 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn and carefully put through all 4. So not this stitch, but below it, and we're going to work our 4 single crochets in a row. 1, 2, 3, and then remember for the 4th one, it's going to go inside the hole where you had done the 3 single crochets. Oops. I can't even, if I can get it, wrap yarn, and for the 4th. And then you sometimes have to move this one over 1, 2, 3 to find the 3 stitches, and you want the middle one, and you want to be in the first, the front and the back loops, so both loops, and do 3 single crochets. 1, 2, And one more for 3. And then we're going to go back into the hole where the 3 single crochets to go for the first stitch. So 1, and then go over for 2, 3, and 4. And you're going to continue all the way to the rest of the end with your pattern, changing your colors. You're going to do the peaks, you're going to do your heart little shape design, go all the way through, and then once you turn and you're in the same color, that's when you're going to do your back loops only. So you're going to keep continuing changing out your colors. And in the end of this video, I will let you know how many of these of your sets of 24 across of the chains in the very beginning you would need for a baby blanket, for a throw blanket, a full blanket, a twin blanket, and so on. So I hope you like this video, and then if you do, follow me for more tips.